This presentation is about American author Olaudah Equiano, who lived from 1745 to 1797. Equiano's life in Africa. Olaudah Equiano was born into a distinguished black family in Nigeria, Africa, one of 7 children. He was destined to be a leader of his people, but at age 11 he was captured by other black African slave traders and sold to another black African family far away from his home. He was familiar with slavery, as his own family had owned black slaves, and slavery was an ancient tradition in Africa. Traveling the world, he was treated kindly as a slave in Africa.
Equiano was sold in Barbados to an owner whose language he could not understand, and he was shipped to North America. In America, he became a slave on a plantation in Virginia, where he was amazed when he saw books and portraits of people for the first time. In less than a year, he was sold again to an English sea captain who renamed him Gustav Vasa, after the famous 16th century Swedish king, and was taken to England, where he was put to work as a house servant and then went on voyages with the ship captain master and traveled from Europe to the West Indies and then back to North America. At sea he was taught to write and introduced to Christianity, and in 1759 he was baptized back in London. During the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, he accompanied his British master as his personal servant during battles between the British and the French. After the war, he was sold to an island merchant on the island of Montserrat in the West Indies, where he sailed to and from North America carrying slaves and merchandise, earning his freedom and becoming an abolitionist. Equiano proved to be so useful to the ship captain under whom he served that he was permitted to trade and keep the profits until he earned enough money, 40 English pounds, to buy his own freedom. On July 11, 1766, he was officially emancipated. For the next year, he continued to work as a freeman for his former master in the West Indies, but in 1767, out of fear of being stolen and sent off to bondage again, he returned to England, where slavery was prohibited. There he worked as a hairdresser and barber. He then became an overseer of black slaves on a plantation in Central America, but he returned to England again to work as a hairdresser and barber out of the continued fear of being enslaved again. Equiano's autobiography. In 1789, while living in London, Equiano wrote and published his autobiography called The Life of Olaudah Equiano, or Gustav Vasa the African, written by himself. It was an instant success and was soon published in America and translated into Dutch, German, and Russian. His autobiography was the first slave narrative and first book in English written by an African. Equiano's slave narrative is similar to other slave narratives in that it shows the sensationalistic survival of a slave through the everyday brutalities of slavery, as well as showing his spiritual growth and struggle to retain his Christian faith in the midst of suffering. Equiano's slave narrative is unique in its description of his life in Africa before he was sold overseas. However, recent research has suggested that he was actually born in South Carolina. Whether fictional or partially fictional or not, Equiano's slave narrative is a fascinating story of a hard-working young man going from rags to riches that helped contribute to the concept of the American dream, which has inspired people from all walks of life through the ages. In London, he joined the growing abolitionist movement and served a commission who successfully tried to return poor blacks from England to Africa to a colony in Sierra Leone. He then traveled widely through the British colonies, speaking out against slavery and the slave trade.